Welcome in here to this week's episode of Three True Values Big Board. We're talking all things NBA draft with Jamie Shaw from Rivals. He's going to help us break things down, talk through some of the top prospects. Today, we're talking about the one and done potential of a lot of these guys. This freshman class has been outstanding. We talked about it last week on the show. I've got a column coming up on it. Jamie, I know you've written about it extensively as well. This freshman class is really, really special, not only on the college basketball floor, but in what they can become at the next level in the NBA. So, thanks for joining us, and thanks for talking through some of these elite prospects that we have that we get to watch now.
Lots of excitement, man. It's awesome to sit there and see. I know you and I talk pretty much every night offline about the show and what happened. Did you see this guy? Did you see this guy? And it almost seems like a new guy every night.
Yeah.
The impact the freshmen are having this college basketball year is impressive, and it's a talking point. I feel like it's going to be a talking point throughout the entire course of the season. So there's fun stuff.
Yeah, I want to start up at the top. We've got the quote unquote big three that people have been talking about, but me and you both think that there's a couple of guys who have kind of inserted themselves in that conversation that aren't going to let this be a three-man race for those top spots that are going to get in the mix. But we'll start up at the top of the consensus top three. And I know that me and you both have the same guy at number one. So I want to talk about AJ DeBonsa because he's not a unanimous number one anymore. And I know both of us are kind of scratching our heads as to why, looking at him as the prototype number one pick, everything that you would want in that top spot.
Yeah, it's quite puzzling. I mean, and having watched AJ since the eighth grade, his development throughout high school, and now what he's doing at the collegiate level, there's just so much that he offers on the court. So much natural stuff that checks boxes at the highest levels of the game. I mean, just looking at what he did at this UConn game, kind of flow of the offense, got everybody involved in the first half, and then absolutely took over in the second half. BYU was down double digits. They were without a starter who was suspended the previous day, and then Kevin Cato went out early as well. Well, they just kept feeding AJ, and AJ continued to find space in the half court. He continued to get open looks. His ability to create opportunities, shot opportunities for himself with his footwork in the half court. He was knocking down jump shots. He was getting to the rim. He's athletic at 6'9", pushing 6'10", long and twitchy. He's got the natural tools and the skill set that you look for with the positional size and the athleticism, but then he's also got such an intriguing array of footwork to be able to create open space, get into spots in the mid post and the mid range area. But then we saw also against UConn, who was one of the best defensive teams in the country, his ability to hit a counter. You know, when the primary move was taken to his spot, he was able to reverse pivot, or he was able to get to a counter move to still score the basket at the rim. His game is advanced, his feel is advanced, and it seems that things continue to come along while checking all the boxes. He continues to be the no-brainer number one pick right now when it comes to the NBA draft for me. And I think that he's in a tier of his own.
Yeah, I mean, I look at just the multiple outcomes that we talk about, and forget the multiple outcomes. The chance that he becomes a two-way star at the small forward position, which is the most valuable thing you can have in NBA history, is so high compared to anyone else that we scout in this class or in recent classes or that we see coming up, that I look at him and I say that is about as home run of a number one prospect as you can get. The big question that people point to when you ask them is one has been a little bit of a consistency, a little up and down engagement at times. That hasn't looked to be a problem at the college level where he looks to be challenged. He is figuring things out. It's not the high school level where he's just the best player on the court and he's kind of just waiting until he gets to the college game. And then the shooting, which we talked about the other night, again offline. He's knocking shots down this season so far. It looks like something that he's going to be able to grow into, and is something that I think is a little bit dangerous for us to lean really heavy on with a guy like him. Because if you look at the list of NBA guys who fit this mold as the two-way superstar from that small forward position, many of them are significantly better shooters now than when they entered the league.
Yeah, the shooting aspect is not. I mean, he's he's going to have to become more consistent with the free throws and everything. But his ability just to create clean looks and knock down the shot, the balance points are there, the release is there, and all that stuff. The shot is promising. It's going to clean up. I have no doubts about that. And he's shooting at a good clip so far in the small sample size of what is college right now. But just his ability to create space, to create open looks, the competitive nature that he brings, playing every minute of every game and getting in there, and you can hear the vocal nature of what he brings to the court as well. There's just so many boxes there. I don't think it's a big three. I think it's Dybancis to lose and everybody else is chasing. I think that's what it was at the start of the season. Watching this UConn game, I think he's done everything to solidify. Through the early parts of the season into this UConn game, 4 games, he's done everything to solidify that it's Dybancis and then everybody else chasing.
Yeah. The other guy that a lot of people like that I see probably most often in that top spot outside of Devonsa is Darren Peterson. There's no question that he's got incredible offensive skills. A lot of that same stuff, being able to get to his spot, being able to counter, being able to operate with the ball in his hands as a big guard is something that adds a lot of value to his game as probably more of a two if we were going to assign what position he plays. But I think we talked about on a previous episode, the ability to handle the ball then gives you a lot more value from that position, being able to initiate the offense as well.
For sure, and even in Darren Peterson's early season, he's played 2 games out of 4 so far, and he's had a matchup against Caleb Wilson. Obviously, it's not a one-to-one, different positions, all that type of stuff. But Caleb Wilson was the better freshman, the better prospect, the better freshman on the court when they went head-to-head at that time. So, I'm sure we'll get to Caleb Wilson here in a little bit. I would probably have him in that same tier as Peterson so far. But looking at Peterson, you see the offensive ability. You see his ability to create offense on the court. In college, playing toward winning is a whole lot more important kind of to the NBA. There's been some hollow stats so far in the college game for Darren Peterson, but that doesn't take away his ability to score the basketball. He is definitely better suited off ball, but he's got to have the ball in his hands to create. There's a lot of getting into the paint, lives in the paint, doing a lot of stuff of getting to the free throw line, a little bit of foul baiting involved. But his ability to just create offense, get into the paint, DHOs and screen and rolls, and then putting the defender in jail and getting shot opportunities, getting to the rim, finishing, the floaters and stuff. He's got some nice footwork in the mid range. The elbow jump shot is good for him, and he's making the three. He's making the three in college, which is huge for him. That was a question mark coming in, but obviously shooting can change and evolve. As you spoke about with AJ Dybansta, question mark with Peterson coming in was the shooting aspect of things. He's shooting the ball very well early on in college now, and there's a real scoring ability that he has, a real ability to put pressure on the defense. When his game is streamlined and he's not having to make decisions with the basketball, and he's just able to get the ball, go score, he's as good as anybody in the country, and he'll continue to put up numbers in that. And there's also some defensive aspects that he brings to the table with the upside there as well, with the aggression and his ability to make reads kind of in the passing lanes and playing up the line and doing all that. So there's a lot of stuff there with Darren Peterson, a lot of stuff there that translates also. He plays kind of at a pro's pace, kind of a slow and steady pace. He's not ever rushed with the ball in his hands. He's really, and I wanted to get back to reiterating, he does a lot of putting pressure on the defense from various angles, various levels. You always have to stay attached with him. And then, when he gets in that screen or when he gets in that dribble handoff and he gets somebody off balance, a defender off balance, he's able to maintain that advantage and continue to put pressure on that as well as anybody in the country. Almost Braden Smith-like. It's just Braden Smith's more of a passing guy. Right. Darren Peterson's more of a scoring guy with it. But there's just so much there with his ability to continuously put pressure, and that translates. All of that translates to the highest levels of basketball. When it comes to somebody's ability to just kind of consistently create advantages.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you touched on in the middle there about the kind of borderline foul baiting, and that's something that I actually had in my notes from one of his early games. Was that it was a little foul baity, but then I think about it and I say, okay, foul baiting is, whether we like it or not, and I think pretty much every fan agrees that they don't like watching it, It's part of the game. It's something that when you're the superstar, when you're carrying your team and trying to either get back into this or trying to get yourself through this tough stretch, you've been out on the floor for a long time. Being able to get a quick foul call, go stand at the free throw line, compose yourself, reset, relax a little bit. Your coach gets to give some information to your teammates, can make subs in and out, and then you get free points with the clock not moving. It is a valuable piece of what superstars can do using their standing within the game and using their skill set to be able to get to that spot. And so while if some guys who aren't going to be able to do that, I don't think at the next level were foul baiting. I would probably knock them for it. He's a guy who I think has the kind of star potential to get that same whistle in the NBA, and so I look at it a little bit differently than I do some other guys who do it in that conversation.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's no discounting, there's no denying the talent he has.
Yeah,
He has a lot of stuff that translates directly to the highest levels of the game, and translates very well, and should translate relatively quickly when given the usage of being able to play on ball and make plays.
yeah. We talk about another guy who there's a lot of questions about how it translates. It's Cameron Boozer, kind of the rounding out of this big three, the other guy that you see occasionally in that number one spot that people will talk about as a potential number one overall pick. But there's a lot of it that you have to kind of go in and say, whatever team takes him is going to have to build it around what he is able to do, what he does well. The players are going to have to fit with what he does. It's not just this direct plug and play that AJ and Darren appear to be that fit into any system. Being a power forward who's not a high level shooter, not a big time athlete, there's going to be some kind of fit based evaluation with Boozer that you don't often see at that number one spot, but is going to be interesting to follow because the production is just undeniable.
I think moving forward through this draft process is going to be a very interesting conversation between. There's a lot of guys involved in it, but more specifically with AJ Dibansa and Cameron Boozer, in the fact that you have Cameron Boozer who is going to check every box when it comes to analytics. The analytical game, the analytical makeup of what Cam Boozer is going to have throughout the entire course of the season is going to be incredibly high, and he's going to win a lot of games. And then you have the look test of what AJ Dibansa brings of the eye test as to what he's going to bring. His analytics are going to be fine too. But the look test versus the analytic test, and it's going to go throughout of what you bring with Dibansta and Cam Boozer. And it's going to be fascinating to see kind of how that leans, because you're already seeing some people, leaning one way or the other when it comes to the conversations between the two of those. With Cam, he just knows how to play basketball. He just knows the game. His feel for the game is at an incredibly high level. Yes, he does not lack. He lacks a twitchy burst. Yes, he's more 6'8" than 6'10", but he finds a way. We saw in the exhibition game against Tennessee. Obviously, you don't want to take too much away from an exhibition game, but there are things that you see and watch.
Right.
And we saw in the game against Texas, Cam did struggle to create his own looks when given the ball in the half court, put the ball on the bounce or whatever to get to a spot. He struggled a little bit against length and athleticism. On the block, he struggled against guys that were physical and lengthy as well. So figuring that out is going to be interesting. But he's got an unbelievable way with leverage. He's got an unbelievable way with understanding angles, and he's got feel for the second rebound. So we saw numerous times, both in the Texas and Tennessee games, where he missed the first shot but was able to gather the rebound and almost playing volleyball off the backboard with himself to be able to gather the rebounds and then get to the free throw line. He does a really good job of getting to the free throw line where his initial shot might not quite be there. He gets his body into the defender and causes contact and makes the referee make a call.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. Unbelievable passer. The processing with the ball in the half court is next level. I wouldn't be surprised to see Duke continue to run a lot of offense through him. Getting the ball into his hands in the half court and then run actions off of him and letting him be the one that makes the read and play to get the player open. Very good rebounder as well. Again, understands the leverage, understands the angles, understands doing the work early and getting to the spot to be able to grab the rebound and either extend the possession or finish the other team's possession as well. The scoring aspect is going to be the big question for somebody that he's on the 6'8" side of 6'9", more so than the 6'10" side, and then he lacks that true burst to be able to create his own offense. More of a pick and pop guy, more of a flash and finish quickly guy. That he's showing. But I have no doubt Shire is going to put him in good actions to be able to get him good looks. And he'll continue to produce, and the analytics will continue to be high for him throughout the year.
Yeah, I like that facilitator aspect as well that he brings at the top of the key. Now, sometimes he can get overextended, but when he facilitates from the very top of that 3 point line, I think that it opens so much up for those other cutters, the 3 point shooters at Duke, because he has real gravity when he's in that spot. Now, when he gets out to half court and starts dribbling the ball, a little bit less gravity. They can sag off a little bit more. They can kind of collapse on him as he gets into the paint. There's more that the defense can do from there. I think that he provides them the best value as that kind of facilitator right at the top of the key. And then also as a guy who can do dribble handoffs, who can set screens there at the top and get a lot of different actions going in those situations. But let's move on. Let's talk about Caleb Wilson now, because I know that he's a guy that for both of us is kind of creeping up this board, really getting close to this top three conversation. He's been so impressive so far. I know that he caught big social media attention for, of course, after the Kansas game, showing his lock screen that there was a whole backstory for how Darren Peterson didn't pass him the ball at the All-American game. And so that was his motivation to go out and beat Kansas on that night. Of course, that's the mentality that anyone wants to bring on their team. So what have we seen from him on the floor so far that's been so impressive?
When it comes to just sheer impact, two-way impact, I'm not sure there's been a freshman who's had more impact on their team through 4 games than Caleb Wilson. You sit there and see him having 3 stocks per game, steals plus blocks. You see him scoring over 20 points per game at almost 70% field goal percentage. You see him passing the ball. You see him pushing the break. You see him running some offense, some high-low stuff with Basar and all that. Coming into the season, you loved the versatility he brought on defense. You saw watching him play this past season, especially with the Knight Riders program, you saw the archetype. You saw the potential of a possibly, not one-to-one again, but the lineage of maybe a Jaden McDaniels type of archetype,
Yeah.
Where if things broke right, that could be the top-end outcome of what he brought. Now you're seeing at UNC a whole lot more of an offensive game. You're seeing the passing acumen. You're seeing his ability to create offense. You're seeing his ability to get to spots, play off of people, as well as creating advantages facing the basket off the bounce. We saw in the Kansas game an unbelievable ability, especially in the second half, to get to spots in the mid-range and knock down tough shots. So now he's looking like an offensive potentially player who is also able to guard on the ball on defense, get into the passing lanes and switch down and be a weak side rim protector and all that type of stuff. There's a real two-way ability that Caleb Wilson brings at 6'10", 220 with athletic fluidity, with explosive pop, with offensive upside that's there. The only thing is the jump shot. He's going to have to smooth that out, and the hitch is getting less. He's showing that, but he's going to have to smooth that out. But when it comes to just sheer impact of the game, the two-way ability of being able to shut down the other team's best forward, as well as create his advantages on the offensive end of the floor for multiple areas on the floor, I think he's as high as kind of anybody in that class. Now, I don't think his ceiling is quite where AJ DeBastis is, but on the floor together against Darren Peterson, he showed the winning qualities and the winning intangibles to kind of get his team over the spot, and the winning effect of both playing defense, the hustle plays, and creating real advantages on the offensive end of the floor. During that Kansas game, he really showed an offensive output when it came to getting to the mid-range spots, getting to his spots on the floor, rising up and knocking shots down.
Yeah, the most impressive thing to me is just coming into the season, he was a guy who I expected to have some really good defensive impact and to get to the rim and finish some plays, get points, just get in the mix and have good stats. But when he started taking those one dribble pull-ups and now when I watch North Carolina, when he gets past the defender for that pull-up, I just assume it's going in. I mean, he's gotten just the efficiency that he has been able to show in that range that we're seeing more and more in the NBA game. That's becoming where you can make a lot of money because the defenders are not guarding that space of the floor. They want to run you off the 3 point line and keep you out of the paint. When you can get into that intermediate area and knock down shots, you're going to have the ability to not only get a lot of points, but get efficient points because it's an open shot that you're going to be taking from that area. So really impressed by that. Like you said, the 3 point shot developing. If he can develop that, I look at him as a really versatile guy who you mentioned Jaden McDaniels in big lineups. He might be able to play the three. He's got that athleticism, that ability to play perimeter defense.
And he
That
can certainly guard the three.
right, exactly. So on defense, you have no questions. On the offensive end, if he can knock down a little bit more from the perimeter, or even if it's in that slashing mold that he gets a little bit more of those the backdoor cut into his game. We talked about the mid range being able to get there. It's going to take some different spacing advantages created by the other players on the court, but he's a guy who I look at and say he might be able to pop up to the three even as he continues to develop his offensive game, especially at the rate that we've seen him do so far.
Yeah, the margins are very wide for potential outcomes for what Caleb Wilson brings, and he seems to be somebody who continues to grow into his game and add more to it. I think very high upside there, and I think he has willed his way ahead of some of those others we talked about previously.
Yeah. Nate Ament in this class too, a guy who came in with a lot of real excitement over his size and length on the offensive end, the production that he was going to have on offense, and he has not disappointed. It almost feels like Ament has kind of gotten not pushed to the side, but he's become more of a side topic than I thought that he was going to be coming into the season because he's doing what we expected him to do while other guys are kind of just rising the level and making us watch. He's been real consistent for Tennessee so far, I've thought. Obviously, he's still growing into the game. He's still growing into his body. But I was really encouraged in their last game just last night. Double-digit rebounds, big scoring output. I like the kind of progress that we're seeing from him. And I think that playing for Rick Barnes, I said it in the preseason, I'll say it again. I think it's a perfect match for him as he tries to develop his game and become the best basketball player down the road that he can.
Well, they had a big game against Duke in the preseason. A lot of people watched that and they formulated kind of opinions on what Nate Ament is as a player off of that exhibition game. That there wasn't offense set, there wasn't defenses set. It was just going out there playing and doing all that. And then now Tennessee starts the season, I think, with five or so low mid major games, and then they hit a really high stretch coming up here in the next couple weeks where they play 5 or 6 high major games in a row. Nate Ament has quietly throughout this thing, the eyes haven't been on him after that Duke game. He's averaging almost 20 and 10 right now with 3 assists.
Yeah.
He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's almost a 50% shooting, 20 a game, 10 rebounds or 9 rebounds, 3 assists a game, getting to his spots. Now he's got an interesting game, 6'10", able to put it on the floor and create advantages. Much like Caleb Wilson, a lot of his stuff is done in the mid range. Like a lot of his stuff is done off of 2 dribble pull ups or getting into ISO situations, backing into the mid range shot and scoring. In that 12 to 18 foot range. He's physical. He's thin, but he's physical. He's not afraid to play physicality. The thing with Nate Ament always for me has been ever since his sophomore year of high school has been the passing. He's a quick processor with the ball in his hands, and he's able to deliver timely passes within the flow of the offense to pass his teammates open. He can play as the initiator in the pick and roll. He can play as a spacer in the pick and roll, and he can play as the roll man in the pick and roll. A lot of versatility that he brings with his ability, a lot of versatility that he brings with his fluidity and size at 6'10" on ball guy. It seems that him and Jacoby Gillespie are continuing to find their meshing. Their chemistry. It seems that they're still trying to find their chemistry, and it seems that it's kind of coming together. Gillespie's one of the best guards in the SEC, and Nate Ament's one of the highest upside prospects in the country.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting to see what Nate Ament does over these high major games and then getting into the SEC slate. It seems that he's getting incredibly comfortable right now. More comfortable will continue to come, and his upside remains as high as anybody in this class. I mean, I think the top 10 conversation is absolutely still in play there, and it's even more so the ability to possibly go higher. If you remember, at this point in time last year, Cooper Flagg was playing against Kansas, and he got the ball twice down the stretch, turned it over both times, and everybody was questioning whether Cooper Flagg was a good prospect and
Yeah.
what he was doing as a player. There's a lot of season left to play here. There's a lot of growth to be had. There's a lot of comfort level to be had here. Nate Mint has as much upside as anybody in this class, and I say that very sincerely. And I think that it's going to be very interesting to see. And he's producing so far. He had one game, one that exhibition game, questionable stuff, but he was still in that game getting to his spots. He was still showing that he was able to create clean looks, at the rim against a high level talent. A couple of them just didn't fall. Well, now starting the season, 20-9 with 3 assists, they're starting to fall. He's getting to his spots, and I could foresee an upward climb coming for Mint when it comes to his reputation in these next few weeks.
For sure. I agree. And we've reached the point in the show where we've got to address the ridiculous comment that was out there that was floating around. You already dropped his name. We're 5 players in here, and there was some Cooper Flag talk that maybe in this draft class he would go as low as number 6. So we've talked about 5 guys. Cooper Flag would go at least ahead of at least 2 or 3 of these guys, right?
I mean, yeah, you would think, but hindsight being 2020, we don't know what the rest of these guys freshman year are looking like. But also, you have to remember that Cooper Flag's still young,
Yeah.
classified up a class. So he Cooper Flag might actually be younger than some of these guys that we're
I
talking
believe
about.
he is younger than a couple of them, and he's within, I think it was 2 or 3 months of the rest of them. There is
Yeah,
nobody in this class that we've talked about who is significantly younger than Cooper Flag.
yeah. So I mean, seeing what he was able to do last year, um, I mean, Dibansa is tough. When they were both in high school together, I thought Dibansa was the better prospect. I came under a little bit of scrutiny from saying that. I still think that. The rest of the way, man, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Caleb Wilson deserves a conversation. Darren Peterson deserves a conversation. I had Cooper Flag ranked higher than Cam Boozer when they were in high school in the same class. I still probably think Cooper Flag over Cam Boozer in that one. So Nate Mint to be determined. Nate Mint
Yeah.
right now probably would take Cooper Flag over him, but there's still 30 games left in the season, and I think Nate Mint's ceiling might be a little bit higher. But we'll see how much of that he reaches.
Yeah. I think for sure, if Flag was in this, we'd be talking about at least a big 4, not a big 3. So I'm not sure that he would be 6th, as some have suggested. But as we wrap up this segment here, I want to talk about Mikel Brown and kind of round out this top this second tier that I have. I've got it kind of split up into 2 tiers at the very top, and Mikel Brown is in that mix now for me. We saw what he did in the offseason, playing with Team USA, playing everywhere that he showed up. It looked like he was a different player, that he hit another level. And then early in the season, he kind of was taking a minute to get adjusted to the college game, but he really broke out against Kentucky. It looked like when he got on the big stage, he was ready for that spotlight, and he showed up big time. You see just the ability to be the star point guard out there against a team that is game planning around you having the ball in your hands, and really impressed with what I saw from him in that one.
Yeah, Michael Brown finished, I guess, rivals in the conversation. He ended up number 2
Mhm.
at point guard in the class. Him and Kingston Flemings was the
Yeah.
conversation throughout the entire process. But they ended up back to back. In the class, Kingston was number 1, Michael was number 2, and I think they were maybe 12 and 13 or 13. I think 12 and 13, maybe 13 and 14. Both 5 stars within the class. Very different players, but with Michael, you see the offensive ability. You see that he's got a high skill floor. He's got the ability to get the shots, and he's got the ability to a crafty handle. He's got a burst with the runway. The thing with him is the strength, continuing to add that, and then showing consistency. While he had the huge game against Kentucky, he has been a little bit turnover prone throughout the season, and he has been very inconsistent with the jump shooting throughout the season so far. So finding that consistency is going to be big for him. But what we're seeing with Louisville so far is the offensive scheme that Pat Kelsey has, the spacing that he's creating, and also the freedom and the runway that he's giving Michael Brown to be able to make plays, to be able to go out and do things. And that's going to be huge for his development as he goes throughout the entire season. He's going to be able to have the spacing. He's going to be able to have the ability to make mistakes and the long leash understanding that, okay, I made a mistake on that one. Let me build it back up, and next time it's not going to happen again. So having that leash and having that system is going to be big for Michael Brown as it continues through. What we see from Michael Brown, he's got the confidence, he's got the skill base. He's got the footwork understanding. He's got the processing, the reading of the floor, the ability to have counters off the bounce, ability to get spots. He's got all that in his game. Going to need to get stronger. And the measurements is going to be interesting for him when it comes to the NBA draft combine and all that. How tall does he measure? What does his length and weight and all that look like? But there's some stuff there he's going to have to clean up. But you see that he's capable of doing that. You see that he's capable of cleaning that up. You see that he's capable of, of tightening up the turnovers, capable of making the shots, getting to his spots, becoming more familiar with where his spots are on the floor, what good shots he needs to take are, and all that. But there's some real stuff there. That's why he was a top 2 point guard coming out of the class and in that conversation for number one, pretty heavily.
Yep. When we come back on the other side, we're going to rapid fire through a lot of other freshmen here that we've got listed that we've got to talk about because there's so much in this class to discuss, not just the top 6 here that we've touched on early, right here on 3 True Values Big Board. Welcome back in here as we continue going through the top freshmen with some NBA draft stock on 3 True Values Big Board. I'm going to kick us off here as we kind of bounce things back and forth. We're going to go through some players that we really like early, guys who have some one and done potential, who could continue to rise up draft boards. Just kind of guys that we really like, who there's some projectability forwards of what they're going to be in the NBA. And I feel like there's no more projectable guy in this class than Chris Sinak, who plays at that power forward center position. He's a really high level defender. The offense continues to develop. He looks more comfortable every time that I watch him. I feel like he gets a little bit better understanding. There's going to be bumps along the road. He's already had some this season, but this last game in particular, I thought that until he fouled out, it looked like he had a little bit better understanding of where his teammates were going to be, where he needed to be, just on that offensive end of the floor. That's going to be the key for him. And it's not dissimilar to a lot of other guys that we've had in this 6'10", 6'11 mold, the kind of unicorns, as we call them, on the defensive end who can provide you some offensive punch. Usually it's that offense that has to kind of come along behind it. 2 guys who are probably above the ceiling for where he's going to be, but who kind of lead the way in this mold is Jaren Jackson Jr. and Evan Mobley. Like I said, I don't know if he gets to their level because they have become offensive hubs in a lot of ways, but if he can round out the offensive game, that's the kind of impact that you're talking about that this guy could have. And that's why people, I think, are so intrigued, whether they think he's there right now or not. There's a lot of fascination with what he can become.
Well, for sure. And you look at Cenac too, listed at 6'11". He's rebounded the fire out of the ball so far. Excellent rebounder in and out of area, offense, defensive end of the floor, really tracking and high pointing the ball at a high rate. And he's knocking down a 3 a game. Last game, he had 2 threes, stretched the floor in the corner. That's always been a flash part of his game. It seems that might be, coming a little bit more into sustainability at this point as well. With his athletic fluidity, as you said, the rebounding aspect, which is massive.
Yep.
Quite possibly, to this point, he's the best rebounding big in this class.
I've got a counter there, but he's way down the board, and I'll get to him a little bit later on.
But he's done a great job at stretching the floor, offensive flashes, and all that type of stuff. Chris Senak's ceiling, I believe, with you is really high. Looking at his teammate Kingston Flemings, we mentioned him earlier in the conversation. He was Rivals' number 1 point guard in last year's class. He's the best point of attack guard in this class. And you look at a line of point guards that are there, the Darius Acuffs of the world, Michael Browns of the world. Kingston Fleming's ability to dictate play at the point of attack is super intriguing, both in his ability to live in the paint, consistently not need a screen to get past his man into the paint, the defensive draw, and then also to prevent other players from getting into the paint. He had 22 in his last game. against Auburn. You saw the defensive ability down the stretch when he was guarding to Hyde Pettiford. Made a couple huge plays down the stretch there in that last little bit. I think Auburn got 4 looks at it, and 3 of them were stopped by Kingston Flemings, either deflection or block shot or whatever the case. And then the 22 points that he's had, he's shooting close to 70% from the field right now. Obviously, that's going to regress to the mean. So we'll see what it looks like in January, February. There's a jump shot question mark that he has coming in, shooting 42% from 3 right now. We'll see what that looks like. If that number is able to sustain above 38 in that 38 range, that'll be very interesting for his outlook coming forward. But when it comes to playing at the point of attack, he is the best point of attack point guard in this class.
Yeah, and he's a guy too that, I mean, man, I've been so impressed with just how he's taken over that team. I mean, you got Milos Uzan coming back off of a really solid year, and you kind of thought, at least I did, that the biggest hindrance to Fleming's draft stock this season would probably be that Uzan was going to get more of the reps, and he was going to kind of show us what he can do as an off-ball guard, kind of the Phylon route of last year. Come in, be the secondary guy, provide some punch, and then next year we'll see a lot more of what you can do. He has come out and just taken over as the engine for this team very quickly, and we'll see if he can sustain as he continues to kind of take the bumps and bruises as he gets into a little bit higher level of competition on a nightly basis. But the way he's playing right now, I mean, we're talking about a guy who could soar up to the lottery conversation easily.
Well, and the beautiful thing about that is that's something that makes this Houston team so dangerous. Is they have 3 guards. You have Uzan, Sharp, and Kingston Flemings. How do you disperse your defensive? If you put a man and a half toward Kingston, that leaves Sharp and Uzan able to go. If you put a man and a half to all of them, then that leaves Chris Senac who's able. They just have so many weapons, guys that are able to create a point of attack. It makes this Houston team super interesting moving forward.
Yeah, I want to throw out Koa Pete here as our next guy. We've talked about on previous episodes just kind of the Cameron Boozer comparisons and obviously different players, but both of them, there's not a traditional just spot in the NBA that you slide them directly into, but the production is there. It's undeniable. He's shown more of that vertical pop. He's really, I thought, rebounded the ball well in a couple of games. I think he's got enough of those boxes that you have to check. I think enough of them are fit that he can come in and find a way to impact winning at the next level. It's not going to be in a traditional style. I when I look at him, I think with less athleticism, but I think of like a Brandon Clark who the translation was never an immediate 1-to-1. Okay, Brandon Clark will come into the NBA and do this. Mm-hmm. But he's so impactful in how he moves across the floor, how he just is committed to winning, that I think that he's going to go out there and provide you a lot of good production.
For sure. There's so many ball in hand things that he's able to do to create advantages, both by passing off the bounce, finding matchups and all that type of stuff. The ceiling, it might not be as high as some others, but the floor of what he's capable of bringing is pretty impressive with him, and the production just speaks for itself. Nicholas Abdallas is one for me. Virginia Tech obviously had that huge outburst, 33 against Providence. The other games that he's played has been a little bit, up and down and everything, but the flashes that he shows are very real. You see the 6'8", 6'9" frame. You see his ability on the ball. You see he can knock down jump shots. You see he can also move the ball and pass the ball as well. Mike Young's going to play in a spaced out system. It seems that Abdallas is going to have the ball in his hands again. We talked about earlier with Michael Brown. There's a system in place and there's a leash in place that he's going to be able to play through mistakes and continue to learn on the fly when it comes to getting accustomed to the athleticism and the length of the game and the speed of the game. And, obviously the pro game in Greece is a little bit different from the college game. Yep. Getting adjusted to that, it seems like Mike Young is going to be giving him the leash. And it's very easy to see somebody who's able to create advantages consistently with the ball in their hand, also having positional size and versatility when it comes to that. There's a lot of intrigue there with Nicholas Abdallas and his offensive gifts of what a lot of people talking Yegor Damon. I think Abdallas might have a little bit more scoring pop than Yegor does. I don't think he necessarily has the passing processing, the ball in hand processing that Damon did. So a little bit of difference there. But, that's kind of where you're looking there, I think the scoring pop is better with Nicholas, and I think he could have a very intriguing season coming up
Yeah.
from this Virginia Tech team, the ACC.
Yeah, he was a player that I loved in the pre-draft process last year, and then obviously was kind of on the border there of first round, second round, how much guaranteed money, what kind of deal can you get, and decides to go the college route, play at Virginia Tech, and I think that that is a really good setup for him and for Virginia Tech because that's a team that, um, excuse me, needs to have some success this season, needs to get some things going, and he is going to be given the freedom. And I really like, and I know he's not somebody that we'll talk about today, but his just the way he combines with Lawal is
Yeah.
it's really an interesting fit to see what he looks like next to an athletic big and how that projects into the future, what he's going to be doing at the next level. You mentioned Damon. I I like a little bit of the Bogdan Bogdanovic
Mm-hmm.
comparison that I've seen go around. He can do some things on the ball, has that processing ability, but can also just get buckets at times off of the wing. So a lot to unlock in his game. Really interested to see what he becomes. But
I might like that comparison a little bit more as well.
yeah, I want to go to Malik Thomas
Mm-hmm.
because this dude is a bucket. I mean, he goes out and I expected him to have scoring punch. The efficiency, what we're going to see throughout, as you said, real small sample size here. So any of these guys that we're talking about high efficiency, it's going to probably come down towards the mean. Guys who are really low efficiency probably going to come up a little bit towards the average as well. But Thomas is a guy who has done so much more than just score the ball for me so far. It's the assist numbers that I have been impressed with. Did not see particularly coming from him. He's been able to find the open man when he gets down and the defense collapses around him. He has so far found his teammates and they've knocked down the open shots.
He's electric. There's a fire that he brings that's just consistent. The efficiency might not be there, but winning kind of follows him around as well. The electric is a good one for him, and it's
Yeah.
going to be interesting to see how he kind of is able to differentiate himself from Tahad Pettiford maybe last year.
Yeah,
In that way, see if he's able to make that growth. From electricity to consistent production.
for sure.
For me, looking at Mohamed Silla from Georgia Tech,
That's where I was going
um,
with the rebounding.
with the rebounding one.
Yeah. I mean, that dude
Yeah.
is an incredible rebounder.
Loved him in high school. Consistently had him in the top 20, and then he reclassed up. But he was consistently staying in the top 20 based on his physical gifts and ability to slide his feet. His the defensive stuff is there. The natural timing, the shot blocking, left hand, right hand, and he's able to track the ball. We'll see what his offensive game is able to consistently bring. Right now, he's at about 12, close to 12 points, 11 rebounds throughout the game. But he's a unique mover at his size, his 6'10", 6'11" size, his ability to move and his ability to slide, and his ability to open up and switch down and protect the rim and do all that is very unique. He's shown the physicality, he's shown the toughness. We'll see where the offensive game goes from here, but there's a unique pathway and makeup that he brings that fits in the highest levels of basketball that I'm interested to see how it continues to grow. Seeing how he plays Long Bay and Dongo also is going to be interesting.
Yes.
How those
Yep.
pairing continue to grow together. But early returns, obviously 4 or 5 games in, he's been able to showcase his unique ability to move and slide and defend and find production.
Yeah, I really like his mobility on defense, and then the rebounding. Like I said, it has been really high level stuff. I mean, there's stretches where he will grab 4 or 5 straight rebounds in the game, offensive and defensive. The offense is clearly a question mark. I don't think I've seen him do anything but dunk so far and shoot a couple free throws, but we'll see as that continues to develop. Can he get into some of those pick and roll, get a little floater over the top, just finish at a high rate at the rim when he is there? Because if he can do that, there's a spot to be that role guy. I want to go to Hans Steinbeck, another guy who's putting up monster production and points and rebounds. He's I think that it's the processing for me at that center position has been so impressive. We knew kind of what he was, obviously another one of these international guys who's coming over, but it has translated really well so far, I think, and it is starting to, in my mind, click more and more of how it can go from college game to the NBA, what he can take from this level and apply to the next level. Those are the questions that I had, was just what of this is going to go from here to the next stop. So far, I'm seeing that processing be the big indicator of what he's going to be able to do. He's just so smart in what spots he gets to, how he gets the ball back to his teammates once the ball comes into him. All of that suggests to me that he's going to find ways to produce.
For me, what he's shown different from what I've seen previously is the athletic fluidity. He looks like a much more fluid athlete than even he did possibly this summer with Germany in the FIBA U19s, and even previously before that. A little bit of I don't want to say clunky. He wasn't clunky, but just wasn't as fluid of an athlete as he's showing right now at Washington. The athletic fluidity makes things super intriguing for him moving forward, because obviously the feel for the game is there. Processing, as you said, is there. There's shooting flashes that's there, but his ability just to find production is certainly there, and the athletic fluidity makes it look a whole lot more intriguing. Keaton Wagler is another one for me at Illinois. 6'6" guard who can create advantages. Now, he's going to have to find consistency. He's going to have to continue to work through the jump shot, the balance points of his footwork, getting into the jump shot, and all that, making the reads and everything. But the early returns that he's showing, 17.5 per game on 40, almost 49% from the field, he's showing that he can score from that off-guard position, maybe even as a secondary type of ball handler. Getting the spots, knocking down shots, and there's a lot of stuff there for him. It'll be interesting to see how he flattens out throughout the year. I love what this Illinois team looks like offensively, especially. You have guys like the Ivisic brothers, Merkovic coming in, who's had an unbelievable year. Probably should be talked about as a freshman, but he's a little bit older. We'll see where that goes. Stojakovic, Kylan Boswell. Offensively, this Illinois team is very, very good. Be curious to see where the mean is for what Keaton Wagler brings. But if not this year, next year, there's a very big, very high upside ceiling that he brings to the table. His ability to do the offensive ability, the smooth nature that he has, the confidence that he plays with. Really like what Keaton Wagler's shown so far.
Yeah, for sure. Dame Sarr for me is another one who has come in, and I thought the production has not kind of been consistent in the box score, but I think that he has an impact on the game. He's starting to adjust. He's starting to be able to let his physical tools on defense make an impact on offense, kind of finding out where his role is on this Duke team. And it's, to me, he's been almost a perfect Sion James replacement in this Duke system that we talk about, the archetypes of what they're looking for. It looks like they kind of plugged and played here. And I think that it says something that we're already looking at Sion James as a rookie in the NBA, talking about he probably would go higher than where he went last year if we did a redraft today. So having said that, and knowing that Sarr is a guy who comes in younger at this point than what Sion James was in the last draft class, knowing kind of the room for growth that he has in some different areas, I think that his stock could continue to grow as we see him kind of flesh out this role and potentially add to it as well.
Speaking of Sion James, Tunde Yosefu at Baylor is one that's very intriguing, very eager to see kind of how he adjusts to the flow of the game. He's somebody who's always been strong, downhill, and aggressive. Mm-hmm. How he adjusts to kind of the flow and the pace of his game, how he's able to get to his spots consistently. He's always going to be a presence on the defensive end of the floor. He's always going to be a presence with the ball in his hands, getting downhill to touch the paint. Curious to see how he adjusts to the flow of the game. It's been pretty good so far for him. I believe he's at 16 or so per game this season for Baylor. He's a focal point of the offense. Him and Cam Carr doing a really good job of consistently putting up numbers for this Baylor team. He's a fascinating one. He's not super traditional in the fact of what he is, but just like Sion James, there's a whole lot of pieces there that you see in the production that he has that's going to be very interesting. California's all-time leading high school scorer, all that type of stuff that he brings to the table as well, the physical presence that he brings, the confidence that he brings, and consistent production and motor. He's somebody that should continue to flash throughout the year.
Yep. As we wrap things up here, I want to touch on just a couple of more names to throw out there that definitely we're going to be watching Darius Acuff is one who has put up some numbers. Still interested to see as a small guard, how does he continue to go through? We talked about with Malik Thomas, his teammate, kind of that Tahad Pettiford. Can he differentiate himself? Can he hit that next level that makes teams believe in you as a guy who can break through that barrier as one of those small players at the point guard spot? Braylon Mullins, we have not seen play yet for UConn, still dealing with an injury. He's a guy that's thought very highly of, probably going to come in and space the floor really well for the Huskies when he does make his debut. Braden Burry is a guy who is he's still finding his role in this Arizona team for sure. There's been some sparks there, but the efficiency and the consistency still going to have to continue to come along. And then Nicholas Kamania at Duke as well, another guy who's still figuring out the role, still kind of working into what he's going to become at this level. Anyone else, Jamie, that you just have to touch on here as we continue talking?
Three names of freshmen that I have a little bit lower down the list. They might be next year guys, but they're making splashes right now. Masamba Diop at Arizona State, big 7-footer. Caden Mingo at Penn State, and then Ibuka Okore at Stanford.
Yes.
All three of those guys are guys that are really making their marks early. They're going to have a relatively long leash with what they're able to do, and it looks like their teams are playing through them. So they have the opportunity this year to jump into that first-round type talk. But this year could also be where they really grow, and then throughout the summer, and then next year possibly jump into even, definite first-round talk. But Masamba Diop, Caden Mingo, Ibuka Okore, three guys I'm keeping an eye on to see kind of their progression throughout the year.
Yep, Caden Boozer, another guy who was on my list, overlooked there because obviously the Twins, sometimes you forget which one you already talked about on the show. Jamie, thanks for coming on today. Thanks for talking through these NBA draft prospects. We'll be back with you next week, and we'll talk some recruiting as we are in the signing period. We've got all kinds of commitments flying around here. We'll talk about some things going on in that world this time next week.
James, I appreciate you.